What's going on, everybody? This is Brandon Hill, and today I'm going to break down this deep, minimal tech house track I made in Maschine, and it's going to sound something like this.
To the old school.
So let's get into it. Okay, so let's start with the scenes and the patterns that I created because this is how I built it from scratch. Let's start with scene 3. I will solo this group. The first thing we have here are these pads that I played in Omnisphere. Here's a patch that I use. It's called Aviary Garden. And then if we look at the notes that I played, very simple. If I go to keyboard, this is in C minor. So I basically have something like this. Except obviously it sounds a little different. So this kind of creates a little ominous sound. And then also with this pad here, I have this kick, which is like a ghost kick that I sidechain to. I have it at such a really low decibel level where you almost can't hear it. And then I use this compressor here to sidechain to that. And when I play this, you can kind of hear that throbbing. And if I mute this, you can hear the sound difference. So this creates that pumping effect. So now let's move on to the drums. Okay, so just a basic 4 on the floor pattern. I have an open hi-hat here. I have these little ghost notes that are at a lower velocity. So if we look at the velocities right here on this one is kind of lower, and then this one is lower as well. And then we have a snare. And this kit that I used comes from this expansion pack from Native Instruments that I really like. It's Infinite Escape. It has a lot of minimal tech house kits. And the kit that I used here is this Alvin kit. So really crisp, minimal drum patterns. So yeah, at the maximum, this is the drum pattern here. Now let's move on to the bass. And for the bass, I used the massive patch that was in this kit right here. So let's talk about how I made this. So I basically utilized this C chord right here. I use note repeat and I put it in dotted. So that's how it records these dotted notes. You see how this one starts right here, right there, and then there. So it kind of adds some groove to it. I basically did this. And then I changed the rate from 1/8 to 1/16 where you see right here. So I basically did that twice. So it goes something like this. So just going in between 1/8 and 1/16. And then right here, I recorded initially all with this C. So these notes used to be up here, but then I pitched those 3 up a little. And that's how you hear that change when it plays a different note. On this bass right here, I have neutron, and I just took out a lot of the highs, just to give it a deeper sound. And then on Massive, I modulated the cutoff filter within Massive. Basically, the filter's closed, and then at this part here, at the end of each 2-bar loop, the filter will open it up, and you could kind of hear that when it plays. It kind of goes like wah, 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 wah. So let's listen. Listen when it gets to right here and right here. So you can hear it's a little more present and punches through. Okay. So next up, we have this right here, which is just a loop that I found within my library, this Maracas loop. I put Neutron 4 on it again, and I did that to take out a lot of the lows. So my low end can be clear of any frequencies that this is adding to it. Okay. So those are the main elements. Now I'll walk you through the scenes. So for the first scene here, we just have the Omnisphere pads, and then right here, we just have the open hi-hat. And I have this kick playing at a really low level, so you could still get the rhythm of the kick, but then the actual full body kick comes in on the drop, which we'll get to later. So this little soft kick with all the lows taken out, it's basically, it has a high pass filter on it. So that's why you hear that little tss, tss, Okay, let's move on to scene one. Scene one, we just add the snare. It's a really unique snare sound. Let's see, where is it? This one. Kind of sounds like a whistle. Okay, now we're on to this scene here where the bass starts to get introduced. Okay, this scene here has a variation of the bass pattern. This is for my buildup, and you'll see it's also routed to a filter that opens up this bass a lot more to help build tension in the buildup and drop. So you'll hear it over the 8 bars open up a lot. So you hear that? Okay, so that's the variation. The filter's opening up. So now we'll go on to scene 1-3, and this is a drop. So after the buildup, this is the drop where I have these elements in here. I have the pads, the drums, the bass, and the maracas top loop. And now you can hear that kick. And then scene 1-4 is just an outro scene. So we'll have the bass, the pads, the maracas, and just the kick. Okay, let's move on to the arrangement here. So this is the full song. It's very simple, just one drop and an outro. I didn't make a second drop, but there's all these groups here and I'll walk you through it. But I think first I'll just play you the song from beginning to end. So it'll be about 1.5 minutes, 2 minutes. So let's see.
To the old school, way back in the day. People come from miles around to hear the music play. We're going back to the old school, way back in the day.
Okay, we're back. So let's break down what's going on right here. So the first thing I'll talk about is the vocal that I'm working with, just a vocal that I got off Splice. I found it in the key that I wanted. And basically this part right here plays the whole 8-bar loop that I'm working with. You know, it sucks working with Splice samples because it's hard to find long samples to make a complete song. So you kind of have to chop up something short and try to get creative with it. But this is the sample right here.
To the old school, way back in the day. People come from miles around to hear the music play. We're going.
Okay, so that's basically the whole vocal that I work with throughout this song. Let's break down the song from beginning to end. So we have the pads playing, we have these clips playing. The reason I created these clips is that I adjusted the output volume of this open hi-hat because I needed it to be loud in the drop so it could punch through the mix. You can hear it. So that's the open hi-hat, but during the intro, it was just too loud. So it's probably, you know, there's phase cancellation or too much going on right here where it's quiet, but then it would be too loud in this section. So I added this output level modulation, and I dropped the dB down -17. So you could see that here. And that takes place all throughout here until the drop where the modulation is taken off. So that's why those clips are there. Then I created this reverse reverb based off the vocals. So this kind of transitions into this vocal start right here. So you can hear that. It'll start to build. Okay, so now we get into here. In this scene, we have this vocal, and let's just talk about the processing on the vocal. I added a filter on it. I added Neutron 4, and I basically used this AI on the vocal, and it came up with this processing chain here. And it edited the vocals so it follows this line here. It uses AI to process the vocals so they follow this characteristic of most vocals in a song. So now let's move into scene 2 where the bass starts to come in. You'll see this vocal chop right here.
Hear the music play. We're going back to the old school. Way back in the day.
Okay, now we get to here, the buildup and goes into the drop. This is where a lot of the action happens. I turned a lot of these into clips. First thing we'll talk about here are these risers and downlifters that kind of transition from this scene into this scene. So let me try to solo this, and then you can hear what this sounds like. So it's going to be this sweep that goes into this downlift. Okay, so now to hear that in context with the whole drop, listen out for these two. Okay, next we have this snare roll. I didn't feel like making a snare roll this time, so this is a snare roll sample I grabbed from Splice. Let's hear what that sounds like. So that's a snare roll. Okay. Next thing are these vocal chops. So basically I chopped up the word back from the vocal, and I have it repeating over here in 1/4 notes, and then it goes to 1/8, or it repeats every half bar, and then it goes to quarter, and then 1/8, and then 16ths. So the vocal is chopping up, approaching the buildup, or approaching the drop. Okay, and the bass, as I told you before, it has this filter that's opening up as it approaches this part right here, which we'll talk about next. This is the end of the buildup, and this is the pre-drop. You kind of create this space where all this tension is. What do I have here? I have this clap, just a simple clap that kind of wraps up the buildup and goes into this pre-drop. So I'll play it in solo. Listen out for this clap. So that will conclude this buildup. Okay, here, this group, I added the vocal again, and I added this little clip right here, which just says back, but I added a lot of reverb on it, so the reverb tail could carry into this space right here. Okay, so that reverb is continuing to go on. These clips here, I just added empty clips to help cut out these parts of the beat. So I added clips over so they create empty space, all right? So this is like the pre-drop area. Right here we have this says to the old school.
To the old school.
So that will lead into the next part here, which is this drum fill that I found. I must have found this on Splice, and I put a filter on it so it's not so vibrant. All right, so let's listen to that all together. Okay, now we'll move into the drop. So in the drop, we have the pads playing, we have the drums playing with the kick. I added this clip here because I put this crash right here. This is 14. So I added that on the 1 right after the drop to have that impact when the drop hits. Okay, and then we have this vocal chop here that says back, that goes right on the impact, and then it goes into the remainder of the vocal right here. And right here, I have this little laser that also has a filter and a reverb, so listen out for this. And then we'll play the first 8 bars of this drop.
To the old school. To the old school. Way back in the day. People come from miles around.
Okay, let's talk about the second half of the drop. So I wanted to add some uniqueness. So what I did was I cut the clips out. So there's this empty space here. And I used this clip and this perk here. So this perk 11. I used 8th notes, 16 notes, whatever these are, to create this kind of sound effect right here. So the drop is going to stop and there's going to be that clap again and you're going to hear this perk.
We're going back.
So there's a space, kind of creates some tension, and then it resolves with the drop again. And I also added this crash cymbal right here. So that's there. And then down here, there's that clap that we heard before. And that kind of leads into this space right here, that clap. And then right here, we have a sweep. The sweep kind of leads into this section here. So that's why that's there. So let's listen again, and we can listen to the second half of the drop.
We're going back. Way back in the day.
And then lastly, we have this outro. So it'll just be the kick, and we have this vocal shot that says back one more time, and that's how we end the song.
We're going back.
All right, and that's the song. Let me know what you think about this format. I have a bunch of songs where I could walk through how I created them like this. You may have seen some of my other videos where I build the song from scratch. Songs that are more complex like this would just take far too long to put into a tutorial to try to teach you how to do that from scratch. So walking you through like this is easier for me, but I want to know what's more valuable to you because I want to help you with your production journey and your machine journey. So let me know if you like this format and if this is valuable to you, or if you'd rather have me show you how to build this completely from scratch, which may result in like a tutorial that's an hour or hour and a half long. I'll do whatever is most helpful to you all out there. I just want to share my journey and help you with your learning journey as well. So with that, I will see you on the next video.